Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback. Now, I know this might be controversial to a lot of you there. You might think Jalen Hurts is the product of a super team, but there's a lot of nuance to this. Yes, Jalen Hurts is a part of a really, really good team, but not every great team's a super team, my nigga. And the majority might have this opinion, but the majority of people probably dig in their butt. I mean, shit, who doesn't? Anyways, I think my point is, no matter what NFL superstar you take out of NFL history, any quarterback in the top 10, they've had a great supporting cast at least once in their career. Tom Brady, he had Randy Moss, he played with Julian Edelman, he played with Wes Welker, he played with Rob Gronkowski. Peyton Manning, he also played with Wes Welker, he had Demaryius Thomas, he had Marvin Harrison, he had Reggie Wayne, he had Edgerrin James. A lot of those players are Hall of Famers. And then you got Joe Montana, Aaron Rodgers. So my point is, every quarterback in your top 10 quarterbacks of all time have had Hall of Fame supporting cast, point blank period. And honestly, it's really a recent thing, this idea that you need to have a shitty supporting cast to be considered an all-time great. I'm not saying context doesn't matter completely, but I think there is something to say about how we choose to use this context sometimes and when we use it. Now let's get it back to the point. What I'm saying is, if you got your top 10 quarterbacks of all time and it's completely based off of what ifs, that's an invalid reasoning. What if your mom was a stripper? What if your daughter had the nickname of Suction Cup? What if your son was throwing that shit back in his bedroom? All these things are what ifs, my nigga. If these what ifs were real, I could base some things off your kids that you might not like. It's fine if you're gay. But today, I got a few quarterbacks that are frequently put in front of Jalen Hurts when it comes to top 10 quarterbacks discussion. And simply put, I don't agree. Now let's start off with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud will be a top 5 quarterback in this league one day. CJ Stroud will win an MVP one day. But as of now, through his first 2 seasons, he has not been better than Jalen Hurts. I see CJ Stroud frequently put above Jalen Hurts, and it makes no sense to me. What has CJ Stroud accomplished, and what stats are so significantly better? He's in another stratosphere compared to Jalen Hurts. And what I have to inform you is, there's none of that. While I understand it might be a valid criticism to say CJ Stroud doesn't have as much weapons as Jalen Hurts, but at the end of the day, I'm basing this how they perform and how they've been performing for the last 2 years, considering CJ Stroud was drafted 2 years ago. And objectively, this is what it looks like right here. In the last 2 years, CJ Stroud and Jalen Hurts has each played 32 games. Jalen Hurts has the better completion percentage. There's still only 2 touchdown difference for their passing touchdowns. And Jalen Hurts has a better quarterback rating than CJ Stroud. But let's get into rushing stats. Jalen Hurts is one of the greatest rushers of the football at the quarterback position ever, and we're not giving him enough credit for that. At the 1 yard line, he scores, and at any other point in history, we are giving people the biggest props for scoring at the 1 yard line. Cam Newton, Jerome Bettis, LaDainian Tomlinson, all players who got love, and their main scoring ability when it came to rushing was from within 10 yards of the end zone. And just because Jalen Hurts' offense does it better than the rest,
that doesn't count for some reason.
And just because Jalen Hurts can get him to the 1 yard line,
that doesn't count for some reason.
That doesn't make sense and isn't consistent with narratives in NFL history. Now back to the stats. Jalen Hurts has 800 more rushing yards than him, but Jalen Hurts has 29 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts' output in the last 2 years is 70 touchdowns in total to CJ Stroud's 46 touchdowns. I'm not shitting on CJ Stroud, but statistically, it's very comparable, if not Jalen Hurts is running away with the win. And then it comes to this, playoff dominance. In 2023, Jalen Hurts had one playoff game where they lost 9-32 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions on 71% completion percentage, and bolstered a 100.9 passer rating. And in the 2023 playoffs, CJ Stroud had 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 1 playoff win. Pretty good for CJ Stroud. But in 2024, Jalen Hurts had a great playoff run, winning the Super Bowl, winning Super Bowl MVP, and having a 71% completion percentage, passing for 726 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, averaged 108.6 passer rating, and rushed for 5 touchdowns as well. And not to mention, he has one of the greatest Super Bowl performances of all time, where in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs that he did lose, he went 27 for 38, 304 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interception, and on the ground he went 15 carries, 70 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Barely lose to the Chiefs 38-35. Let's get back to CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud in last year's playoffs, he threw for a 67% completion percentage, 527 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and had a 92.7 passer rating. Yes, CJ Stroud will have better playoff performances and be in the playoffs more in the future. Unless you're Marty McFly, my nigga, you can't predict the future, my nigga. Real shit. And if you did predict the future, you would see this coming. My point is, you can't predict the future. Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback than CJ Stroud so far. We just haven't seen enough of him. And what we've seen of Jalen Hurts has been excellent so far. This is going to be controversial. Dak Prescott is not better than Jalen Hurts.
And if you're a Cowboys fan, you can dislike this fucking video, you ugly ass bitch.
Simply put, if Cowboys fans are making fun of Jalen Hurts having the most weapons in the league, that's why he's not top 10.
What the fuck does that make Dak Prescott, my nigga?
Dak Prescott in his career so far has had CeeDee Lamb. Ezekiel Elliott early in his career led the league in rushing twice. Motherfucker has had Amari Cooper. He's had Michael Gallup. Each 1,000-yard receivers, by the way. He had Des Bryant earlier in his fucking career. He had the best offensive line in the league for a while. He's had Micah Parsons on fucking defense, my nigga. What the fuck is the excuse for Dak Prescott if we're harping on Jalen Hurts for this shit, my nigga? So since Jalen Hurts has started in the league in 2020, and mind you, like I said, they've each had pretty damn good weapons. As this graphic says, through each of their careers, the better passer is Dak Prescott. I'm not gonna lie about that. But what I will say is, Jalen Hurts has the better record, he has less interception, and dominates him in almost all the rushing stats possible, including 55 rushing touchdowns. But the difference is, my nigga, how they performed in the playoffs for me. Jalen Hurts in the playoffs has 1,813 yards, passes for 201 yards per game, has 10 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, has an average 95.4 passer rating, and has been to 2 Super Bowls and brought home a Super Bowl MVP. And if you guys know anything about how quarterbacks are ranked, you know if you perform well in the playoffs, that gives you an automatic higher ranking. You think regular season wise Tom Brady was better than Peyton Manning? Fuck no, nigga. But because their stats are comparable to each other, and Tom Brady's a playoff riser unlike Peyton Manning most of the time, Tom Brady's ranked higher. And in the playoffs, Dak Prescott has a 2-5 record, has a worse touchdown to interception ratio than Jalen Hurts, in 4 more appearances only thrown 4 more touchdowns than him. And Jalen Hurts is a scrambling quarterback, by the way. Jalen Hurts has 6 more touchdowns than Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has 4 years on him. Dak Prescott literally has a worse passer rating, and Dak Prescott is a
playoff fucking choker
compared to Jalen Hurts, who is usually a playoff riser. Me personally, the stats are pretty comparable in the regular season, but the dominance in the playoffs is so drastically fucking different when it comes to record, when it comes to passing even, when it comes to rushing, when it comes to total touchdowns. I'm taking the nigga that does better at every fucking thing in the playoff. And honestly, if you think Dak Prescott is better than Jalen Hurts, I'm about to do you like this, my nigga. The next quarterback is Jordan Love. Oh, I'm very high on Jordan Love. I believe he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the game today and one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the game today. Don't get me wrong, Jordan Love had an elite year his first season. Don't get me wrong, Jordan Love had a great season his first year. Last year, we can all admit, he struggled a little. I believe Jordan Love can be greater all time than Jalen Hurts, but as of now, I believe Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback based off of what we've seen and what they've produced in the playoffs and regular season. Regular season wise, Jalen Hurts has a better completion percentage, has more yards in attempt, has less interceptions, he has more rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. I'm not saying Jordan Love wouldn't do great on the Philadelphia Eagles. The only point I got is he's not on the Philadelphia Eagles, my nigga. That's literally a what if, my nigga. And if your only argument is a what if, that doesn't hold too much weight. Like, what if I slimed you out, my nigga, right now, bro? You see, I can't because I'm talking through the fucking internet. And this is just based off their last 2 years because Jordan Love has only been a starter for 2 years. And Jalen Hurts still has 8 more touchdowns and less turnovers in the same amount of games. So individual play, you got to give it to Jalen Hurts in the regular season. And not to mention, Jordan Love hasn't been good in the playoffs. This back-breaking interception right here, my nigga, didn't raise any flags to anybody. It's kind of giving a little bit of Brett Favre, you feel me? But anywho, Jalen Hurts, I just told you his stats. Jalen Hurts has 20 combined touchdowns in the playoffs, 10 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, minimal turnovers. And in the last 2 playoffs, he's had 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, and won a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. And in the last 2 seasons, Jordan Love's playoff stats are looking like 64.8 completion percentage, 678 yards, 226 yards a game, 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and in his lone playoff game last year, throwing 3 interceptions to 0 touchdowns, and has an average 83.4 passer rating. So on an individual basis, when it comes to regular season play, when it comes to playoff play, when it comes to accolades in the last 2 seasons since Jordan Love has started, Jalen Hurts has been the better quarterback, and it's not a fucking debate. Okay, that's going to be the end of this video. I enjoy making these videos. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one for real. Peace.